Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Matt Berry, the Chief Operating Officer for HP Federal. Matt, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Jory. Great to be with you.
And Matt, I think one great place to start the conversation is to just drill down on this idea of hybrid work. It's something we hear a lot about, and obviously everyone's definition of that is going to be a little varied here. So just tell me, in your own perspective, in your own words here, when you talk to customers, how do you really get to the nitty gritty of what hybrid's all about and what the value potential is in having a hybrid workplace?
Great question, Jory. So succinctly, I would say to provide superior experiences, not talking about devices, not speeds and feeds, but experiences in order to enable better outcomes, better mission outcomes, better business outcomes. To unpack that, I think it's helpful to take a step back. And at HP, we like to talk about understanding the way the world is today before we can help our customers meet the moment. So I'd like to touch on four structural changes that we're quite focused on, and I think that'll help inform how we think about hybrid and the bridge to employee experience. First, we live in the age of AI, artificial intelligence, not new, plenty of discussion going on. The advent isn't new, but we're absolutely at a tipping point when it comes to the rate of change, the pace of change, nonlinear. And that's both daunting when I think about the nature of work itself changing, the work patterns and processes, and how our customers need to evolve to meet that challenge. And frankly, it's also very exciting for the same reason. It creates an opportunity for transformational change, and that's something that we're focused on. Number two is the age of hybrid work. There's no going back to the pre-pandemic days 4 years ago. Employees have embraced the flexibility that they feel today in working from home, in working at Starbucks, it being in the office. But it's super important for us to think through that it's not binary, it's not one or the other. You and I can have a great conversation today by virtue of this technology. But if we wanted to roll up our sleeves and go work on a program together, craft a strategy with some colleagues, nothing better than to be in a room together, right? And that camaraderie, the relationship building, all of that is paramount. In order to operate in a hybrid work environment successfully, we think a lot about what I call modern IT approaches, and I'd like to come back to that. But briefly, the third is we live in an age of resilience, and I think that's incredibly important to think about. It's clear we're still digging out of pandemic supply chain disruptions, and companies like ours and governments are thinking through, what do we need to do differently to operate in a more resilient fashion? For us, it's not just cost and quality like we've thought about in the past, but what does our manufacturing footprint need to look like? What do our supply chains with our customers need to look like? How do we need to evolve against that backdrop? But I also think resilience in a broader sense, in the sense of the geopolitical and environmental and social climates in which we work, are incredibly important as well. We just don't live in the same world that we have for the past 20, even 30 years. And I think that's critically important. And then finally, we live in an age of mistrust. And while that's a bit daunting to think about, the data clearly shows that citizens trust governments less. And there's a fierce affiliation with either family or community groups or even brands with whom we have shared values and have a sense of belonging. And I think it's very important that companies like ours and our customers think about that and contemplate that in terms of what we can do to drive good in the world. And so against all that backdrop, we have many, many customers that are thinking through new strategies and approaches to address the world as it is. In fact, 83% of top execs, public, private sector, doesn't matter, are looking for new digital strategies to drive better outcomes. And here is the key to me, and to bridge back to your original question, leadership teams can't do it on their own. We have to roll up our sleeves and work alongside employees. And so a lot of the innovation that we're focused on is actually to deliver those superior experiences for employees so that agencies can go craft and drive those mission outcomes that they want to drive. And we do that through modern IT approaches.
Okay, great. Well, to keep going on this idea of the hybrid workforce, we've seen a lot of IT transformation happen across the government space to enable that hybrid workforce. And, of course, that IT modernization journey never really ends. So, just in terms of getting that IT piece of things right in the people, process, technology trifecta that we always look at, what necessarily do agencies need as far as that modern technology? What's the imperative to get that right?
Great question. And so when I'm a visual person, so I think in terms of if you imagine a Rubik's cube, and in three-dimensional space, there's sort of three different elements that need to come together. And so first, I think about first order principles around how work needs to get done. What are the elements of any solution that we would innovate around? And the words are consistent and secure and productive experiences. Anything we do, we're designing and innovating with those first order principles in mind. The second is where. We've touched on that, whether you're at home or in the office or on the go. And then finally, the third one is who. If you're an agency executive or a data scientist or a project manager, a field agent, dramatically different roles with dramatically different experiential needs. And so we need to design for all of those. When you bring that picture together back into that Rubik's Cube, the intersection of any of those 3 points leads to a pretty interesting use case. And I'll just point to one or two to kind of bring this to life. One is, imagine a data scientist working for an agency is home, and she's got an incredibly intensive compute task to go do, large data sets, some boutique data visualization, maybe caring for a sick family member at home, so can't be at the office. In a legacy IT world, cut off from the advanced compute resources that she would ordinarily have. Today, she can look at a single pane of glass on her home PC and access remotely those resources in a high bit fidelity, highly secure way that enables that work and makes it possible. HP Anywhere is an example of technology that we brought to market to go do that. But the important thing is, think about that employee, that data scientist. Her engagement is super high. She's solving for both personal and productive needs on the work front at the same time in a way that we just couldn't do that, go do that before. I'll give it a second example, one that I think we can all relate to. How many times have we been in a hybrid meeting these past couple of years? Let's say you and I are in a conference room at the office, and we've got participants that are beaming in via video from far off. And we're trying to have an intense conversation, but the folks that are beaming in are tiny squares on the big screen in the front of the room, and the dominant voices in the room. We think a lot about digital equity. And does that sound like a very equitable experience? No, obviously, we've all been in that scenario. We've all been that small square on the screen, and it's not a very empowering experience. What does engagement look like when you're in that kind of a world? And what can we do to innovate around that? And that's something that we've spent a ton of time thinking about and bringing our collaboration gear to bear to go fix that. So it could be things as simple, but with profound technology, as cameras that can track and key on a speaker, whether you're in the room or you're up on the screen. It could be the audio. It could be the fact that right now I'm talking to you and there's an acoustic fence around me, so that if there's a disruption outside the room, it won't impair the experience that we're having. And the same thing in a hybrid conference situation at the office. Those are a couple examples of bringing modern IT into the workplace in ways that really help. And I'll just touch on a third because it happened just yesterday, so it's top of mind. I had our IT support team reach out to me and say, "You've got an issue with your laptop. We need to push new firmware your way. Is now a good time?" It was a low touch kind of an intervention, but they avoided the scenario of my being on the road and having a laptop down. And now I'm on the phone with IT and trying to figure out how someone's going to ship a new piece of equipment to me. That's in the past. We've got now very modern ways of addressing those issues. on the back of predictive analytics that really changed the game. And to come back full circle, agencies, our customers need to solve for those kinds of use cases to deliver superior employee experiences. And by doing that, they can really up the game in terms of talent attraction and retention and things that we all need to do in order to be successful.
All right. Well, Matt, a lot of great points there, but I think we're going to have to leave the conversation there. I'd like to thank today's guest, Matt Barry, the Chief Operating Officer for HP Federal. I'm your moderator, Jory Heckman, and you're listening to Federal News Network. Now, let me send you back to the studio for more on the CX Exchange.